Now, I'm very excited today to have a very dear friend, and I've known Dr. Tom Vendetti for years and years and years. But I have to say, Tom, over the years, I've known the huge volume of work you've done, but I'm finding out more and more as I go how amazing the work you've done is, and sometimes the way you do it without any drama. I mean, it's pretty amazing to me that you actually can do the things you do. We got involved in wanting to do a couple of projects, and I'm just thrilled today to say that there's a brand new CD. It's the first time I've actually announced it on the air.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go, yeah. Himalayan Sessions.
Right.
That is now done. It's in the process of being refined, getting out and doing all the stuff, but we haven't really promoted it. We kind of kept it undercover till it's ready to roll. But Himalayan Sessions is a magical piece of artwork. It's masters, musicians, and you bringing them together in a fascinating way, along with Keola Beamer, Chritopher Hedge, with the deep depths of your connections to Paul Horn.
Right.
And all put together in this wonderful CD with the Dalai Lama as well from the interviews you did. And we're going to get into that. Just wanted to throw that out there, let it sit for a second. But I also wanted to say congratulations. Tonight, you're going to be featured on Leslie Wilcox, a wonderful show she does on PBS here in Hawaii. It's called Long Story Short, right?
That's correct. It's 7:30 tonight, and then it airs again 4 p.m. on Sunday.
That's quite an honor.
Yes, and again, I was extremely honored to even sit in the same room with her because she's such a wonderful CEO for PBS Hawaii and a great interviewer.
She is. I watched an interview she did with Merwin before he died. That was really, I mean, I've been doing interviews for years, and I watched and went, wow, she did a very good job, you know.
Right.
Were you nervous going over that? I remember when I first started doing interviews, you were
Right.
first kind of very withdrawn, and more, I see you gained your confidence and you speak out. But to be on TV is as you know, is a totally different thing than radio.
Well, it's interesting because I had it's very anxiety provoking for me to get in front of the camera. I'm usually behind it.
Right.
And I even mentioned that to her, and she said, yes, it's very difficult to talk about your life. It's much easier to be the person doing the interview. And I said, I can relate to that right now.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way. Once or twice I've had to do ones, and I found that I really feel more comfortable asking the questions rather than talking about myself.
But she is such a professional. You know, once we got started, again, all of the anxiety pretty much lifted. I forgot that the cameras were there, and we really got engaged into a conversation.
Well, did she ask you? I know, and I think a lot of people here may realize that you've done quite a few of your documentaries and made them available on PBS. How many of your films have been showing on PBS?
Over the years now, it's up to 11. So
wow, I thought it was like 5 or 6. That's twice as much as I thought.
Right, and 10 of those went national, so that's a pretty good record, I think.
That's a fantastic record. So was that the entree that she started seeing these things you were doing and found it to be very interesting?
Actually, she said that she got some calls, or someone wrote a letter to her recommending, not only because of the PBS shows, but also working as a mental health provider in Maui County.
Well, you have a long history of doing amazing things. You wear a few hats, and what's amazing to me is you retired last September, and I have never seen anyone more busy. What you've just done since last September has been mind-boggling.
Well, again, the word retire is kind of misleading. I
Yes.
retired from the 40-hour work week grind, but what I'm doing now are on my terms. And again, I've been very productive, and it's been very satisfying.
And you've done a lot of trips in that time as well.
Yes, yeah.
You love traveling all around. It's been fascinating to watch, and places that I love as well that you've been able to go to. What questions did she ask that you found reflective and that kind of stuck in your mind that we'll be seeing tonight on PBS at 7:30?
Well, again, she started at the very beginning where I grew up, and I had to basically go back and relive some of that stuff. And it brought up a lot of emotions, especially during the Vietnam War era when I was being drafted and had to go in front of a committee to do the conscience objector stance in terms of where I was coming from moralistically to oppose the war, and then how that led into me getting a job as a psychiatric aide, leading into my, working with the mentally ill for 46 years.
I didn't know that was where the roots of that came from.
Right. I was 18 years old,
Wow.
walked into a psychiatric hospital, and it literally changed my life.
And that was because you had to get special permission as a conscientious objector, huh?
Well, I had to serve my country for 2 years, as opposed to going to Vietnam. So the way that I did that, again, I was placed and was able to work as a psychiatric aide for 2 years. And just at that point, I fell in love with the profession and ended up eventually getting a doctorate and worked with that particular population too, the mentally ill, for 46 years, which was been very rewarding for me.
And you did the trip starting when you were also very young, going to the Himalayas, right?
My first trip, and I don't know, this interview went on for 2 hours, and it'll be edited down to 26 minutes or something like that, so I don't know what they'll cover, but my first trip actually was to the Virgin Islands. I was 17 years old, and a friend of mine, we were both still in high school, and we asked our mother and father if we could travel to Jamaica. And at the time, probably shouldn't say this on the air, but we wanted to buy some pot.
Yeah. Right. I remember those days.
But my mother and father said, "You're not going to Jamaica."
Uh-huh.
But we did settle on St. John's, which is a U.S. national park, and we were able to camp there, and it was absolutely beautiful. And leaving Maryland and going to the tropics at that age.
The rat-infested Maryland?
Yeah, Baltimore.
Baltimore.
But, and it just opened my eyes up, in terms of there's a bigger world than I'm, accustomed to. And that sparked my travel interest and wanderlust over the years.
Well, it didn't stop. And when did you end up going down? Because you were pretty young. You were just in your early 20s when you went to up to the mountains, right?
Well, first, I was about 29, I think.
Oh, okay.
When that happened. And that was after getting my graduate degree.
Uh-huh.
I decided at the time my girlfriend and I would travel around the world, and we ended up on the Big Island with no money. And it took, I think, after 2 years, I got enough money to continue traveling. And
You're
we
on
actually
the edge of paradise.
got back to Flagstaff and 3 years later.
Amazing, amazing stories. Well, everyone, you can watch this tonight on PBS, and what a wonderful, beautiful tribute to be asked to be on Long Story Short by Leslie Wilcox. She's had some fascinating interviews.
Right. She said the Desmond Tutu, the Dalai Lama, and a lot of local people that, that are
Oh, she got to interview the Dalai Lama
and
too?
Keola Beamer. He was interviewed, and Nona Beamer.
We're going to have Keola call in here in about 5 or 10 minutes. And,
right.
So I didn't know that they had been on it too. And how did she get to interview the Dalai Lama?
I'm not real clear on that, but when you go into the studio, her picture's there with him. And
wow. Must have been when he was here.
And their facility is absolutely gorgeous
Is
now.
Is it?
Yeah.
I remember hearing about how they were rebuilding the whole thing.
Right.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And again, I have to take my hat off to her, because she's really the person that implemented all of that and has done such a wonderful job for PBS Hawaii.
Yeah, good for her. Well, you have another side that I had never quite known about before. Is I told you about a wonderful friend of mine. He's been on. Well, he actually provided music for about 5 of my CDs, and I've been on a few of the projects he has done. Rupam Sarma is also a member of the UN and UNESCO, and just an amazingly brilliant man. And he lives in the Bay Area, but he's of Indian descent, and he goes back to India to try to give back and help. And he decided to do a full-length feature film called One Little Finger, and it just got completed a little while ago, and has done really well, shown at Cannes, and got awards in Florida and Telluride and in Italy and in London and all around. And I know they're doing the real premiere for America here in August is happening. August, I think, 15th or 16th. But you and I decided, well, what if we were to bring him to Maui and Oahu? And I didn't realize you were on the board of directors over on Oahu.
Yeah, the Hawaii Disability Rights Center. board of directors.
And that's what this film is all about. Everyone in this film has what's considered a disability, but the film's message is ability in disability.
Exactly.
And every single actor is not an actor, but a real person. And they show through music and the healing factors of knowing you can create and what you can create together.
Right.
Very inspiring. So you invited him to come to Oahu. There's going to be a showing there October 2nd at the Doris Duke Theater.
That's correct, yes.
And then on top of that, I'm thrilled to say that there's going to be a special show here at the McCoy Theater happening on Sunday, October 5th at 7 o'clock. And as you've done before successfully, you suggested, well, what if we bring some musicians in before the show? So we wanted people that support that. And Rock Hendricks, who's got an amazing background, was blind most of his life, had an operation, had that fixed recently, but really likes to support this kind of subject, is going to play with George Kahamoku. And they're going to open up the show.
Right.
And that's going to be a very special moment. And then there'll be a break, and then the film One Little Finger will show. And Rupam Sarma is coming out to be here for that. I think people will find him brilliant and fascinating.
Right. He'll do a Q&A after the film. But Rock Hendricks just blew me away when he told me his story about, again, the operation and then being able to see. And he said everyone in the room was crying, including him. And he's just a wonderful human being.
Oh, he was friends with Michael Jackson. And, I mean, he hung out and played with Michael Jackson. He was very good friends with Marvin Gaye. I've known him for years, and I didn't even know some of his background. And George Kahamoku,
right,
with his CDs, and though his life is amazing and how many people he's taught, so many children he's helped out as well. So it's going to be a nice, half-hour beginning of it. We haven't actually I don't think tickets are quite on sale yet, but it's October 5th at 7, and people will be hearing more about that.
Right.
Now, if that wasn't enough, Himalayan Sessions kind of came about, was it back in March or April? Around April. You said, Cindy, I have this CD. Will you listen to it and tell me, if it's worth making into a real CD? You just had it, you'd made it and printed it yourself.
Right.
And I listened to it, and I went, well, yeah. I mean, come on. It's really well done.
And then you came up with the idea of adding some of the Dalai Lama's words to some of the songs, which we have done.
What an honor. If you were able to do it, I mean, a lifelong dream of mine is just to meet him. I've heard him speak, but you were able to interview him. And so the combination of people is mind-blowing. Christopher Hedge, who we're going to be hearing more about in a second or two here. Keola Beamer, Paul Horn,
right,
and the Dalai Lama are on this new CD, Himalayan Sessions.
What's really interesting about this, too, all of these songs were recorded one location in Tibet, Nepal, and Bhutan. And it truly is, it represents the culture with local musicians. And just for me as a filmmaker, it brought all of my images to life, right? And so over the years, I was thinking, well, possibly we could make a CD, and all of the proceeds for this CD is going to a nonprofit, the Aloha Music Camp, to spread aloha around the world. So we're all contributing our, this for that purpose.
And it's more than that. I mean, I know there's the Aloha Music Camp, but you invited Keola to come to Cambodia with you a couple years ago when you're doing the Angkor Wat Film Festival.
That's correct, yes.
And at that point, when he said, he decided to bring some ukuleles, and it started with, I think he got up to how many ukuleles he brought down to Cambodia?
We had 40 ukuleles and taught 40 kids, and it was so inspirational that not only are they doing extremely well, they're playing and doing concerts in Siem Reap right now. We got a YouTube clip of that.
It's amazing.
It was just beautiful.
I posted it on Himalayan Sessions with an S on the end of Sessions, HimalayanSessions.com. You can also, if you go to HimalayanSessions.com, see the clip Processions, which is the first song on the CD, with some of the clips of the trip you did to the Tibetan Illusion Destroyer event that happens up in the high Himalayas. Is it Himalayas or Himalayas? For the life of me, I say
It depends if you're from Europe or America.
Oh, okay.
It's like tomato, tomato.
Is it that it is? Because I've heard Himalayas, but then I hear people say Himalayas, and I don't know which is ever correct.
Yeah, that particular song, Keola Beamer recorded in Kathmandu with some brilliant local musicians. And
it's joyful music.
Yes, it is.
And if you think of that, I mean, I've heard this kind of music. It is music that is uplifting. It's music that is universal. It's music that makes you realize that there's this high energy. It carries the vibration of the height, because you were literally up how many thousands of feet when you recorded that?
Well, we were in Kathmandu in a recording studio for that one.
Uh-huh.
But the images were we were heading up to Tangboche to Everest Base Camp. So
that's way up.
We started out at 10,000 or so.
Wow. You started at the top of Haleakala and went up from there.
Right.
That's mind-blowing when you think about that, really. And you'll see a lot of yaks, the yaks there. And you'll see this amazing procession of all the goods as you go up to do that, because, of course, on top of that, you had to have your film equipment, and you've been doing these filmings for a long time. I remember when I went back to Tibet in 1997 with your group, and think of the equipment we had then. But now you've got really enthralled with 3D. So you decided to do this film in 3D, right?
Well, again, it was called the Illusion Destroyer. 3D is an illusion, so it kind of made sense to go that route.
So to do that kind of thing when you're in that high altitude, which you've done quite a bit, because you've done filming in Mount Kailash, what, 3 times? 2 times?
2 times, yeah.
2 times. And, of course, Tibet now a few times.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you have to have an extra focus and a real presence to be able to get what you want, because you don't think quite the same way. When you're in that, not only the altitude, but also the vibration of some of these places are very extraordinary.
I remember being about 17,000 feet high with Paul Horn on Mount Kailash. And I said, Paul, would you mind doing an interview or talk about what you're experiencing right now? He said, I think I can do that. And I said, man, it's just remarkable to me that at this elevation, and he was 71 years old then, how he could put all of those thoughts together. And he said, well, I don't know how you can focus the camera. And we both laughed and pushed.
I totally can get that, because it's just even like when I'm on top of, we did a broadcast once on the top of Haleakala on one of their anniversaries up there. And I mean, we thought we were making sense, but on the radio it didn't sound so sensical.
Right.
It sounded like it was like, what are you talking about? But so I have to commend you on being able to do that. And not only that, we're going to talk to Keola here in a minute or two about drawing all these musicians together, a lot of them not, understanding the language, a lot of them not understanding Western music or having played before with Western music. Keola's roots being so deep in Hawaiian music that it was an amazing, magical, transformational experience to get everyone together to play this music.
Well, again, it's obvious that music is the universal language, because watching them work, like you described, it was magical. And what they produced was above all of my expectations. And the idea that we just show up and find these people. I mean, Kathmandu is a big place.
Yes.
And here we are sitting in a room with these very competent musicians that we were picking up, going to their houses and, with a taxi and trying to find them.
One friend referring another friend, or was it kind of word of mouth, Coconut Wireless? Or?
It was pretty much one person that his brother had a band, and he kind of organized and got everyone on board.
Amazing. Aloha. Who's this? Oh, let me help this. There we go. Hi there. How are you doing?
Good. Nice to hear your voice.
Nice to hear yours, too. Is this Keola?
Speaking.
Oh, aloha, Keola.
Aloha.
It's so good to talk to you. Keola Beamer, you're just such a beautiful soul. We were just talking, Tom and I here, about the experience of pulling music together, musicians from all over the world together, to do tracks like Processions and others in the CD. I mean, your background is just really, very deep in Hawaiian and legendary in the Hawaiian traditions. And of course, you'd been to Cambodia. You'd had the exposure there with the kids. What was it like for you all of a sudden finding these musicians that did they even know anything about Hawaiian music?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
I don't even think they knew anything about Hawaii.
Wow.
Yeah, where Hawaii is. Sometimes you get so far out there in the world, people have no idea what, they ask you where you're from, you say from Hawaii. They have no idea literally no idea what you're talking about.
We're having Christopher Hedge just joining us right now. So, aloha, Christopher. How are you? Are you there? The light went off, but I'm not here. Are you there, Christopher? No, maybe not. I don't hear him. I'm sorry, Keola. So continue on your story.
That's okay. Well, I think the reason Tom might have been interested in working with me is I have a great deal of reverence for native instruments. I just think they're so beautiful the way culture sort of develops. I've had a lot of experience, traveling around the world in various programs and playing, sometimes collaborating with other musicians, sometimes, playing in concert with them or something like that. But, there's so much truth to the saying that music is a language of its own. So it kind of bypasses the challenges we have with communication in terms of our own languages,
Mm-hmm.
And if you sort of stay sensitive to the other person's, musical traditions and ideas, they really can collaborate, pretty nicely just on the idea of the beautiful tonality of music itself. Rather difficult to explain, in language, but it just sort of exists outside of human language.
I'm trying again. Aloha? Is this Christopher?
Yes, it is.
Oh, yay. I'm glad you got it. We got Keola Beamer on the other line, Christopher, and Tom Vendetti's here in studio, so we're connecting from all around. And we were just talking to Keola about the magic of music and how you can communicate beautifully, even in Kathmandu, with musicians who have no idea what slack key music is about or what goes on with music. And it kind of works because your beautiful little place in the Bay Area is called the Magic Shop, isn't it?
That's correct.
So there goes the magic again. You have an amazing background, Christopher. How did you and Keola first meet?
Actually, through Tom. And except for that, there was an American DJ who runs a Music of the World station here, who's a tremendous slack key fan.
Oh.
And so she introduced me to Keola's music a long time ago.
Wow, that's amazing, and it works so beautifully. It really does. Tom has brought a lot of people together here. he's brought a lot. He's connected a lot of people. So, Tom, how did you find Christopher? Through Paul Horn?
That's correct. Yeah, I was speaking to Paul, and he said, "You have to meet Chris. He's just a wonderful human being, and I think you two would hit it off." And he was right.
Yeah, that was well, and that brings in the other element of this new CD, Himalayan Sessions. Paul Horn's energy is woven throughout this beautiful CD, and it's his musical magic and his ability to be present. I call him a mystical musician. He's kind of a mystical traveler, and he was present there on your trips to Mount Kailash, of course. And you worked on the soundtracks, didn't you, Christopher, on those?
Yes, I did, and I got to join Paul because Tom invited me to Nepal with him. So we had a chance to adventure a little bit, and plus go out to some unexpected places, including a nunnery outside of town in a time when the country was on strike. And so that meant no taxis, and the only way to get back to town was to walk. About 15 miles, Tom?
At least.
Oh, my gosh. That's a trick.
And so we were quite isolated, but in the main room of this nunnery, they gave us the room for the night, and we recorded one of the pieces that's on the record with Paul playing solo in the room. And when Paul plays, it's not a series of notes or it's not a series of musical riffs. It's always a series of moments. So he's completely cognizant of the moment that's passing, the place that he's in, and almost entirely free of pretense of of musical improvisation. His mind is in sync with the place where he's playing.
I think that comes from all of his years of meditation, of course, he's called the father of New Age. But when you think of the places he's been able to play, the Great Pyramids and the Taj Mahal and Lhasa there at the Potala, and so it's a wealth and a library of music. And Tom, he was one of your great friends, right?
Well, he was when I was in high school, when Inside came out, Inside the Taj Mahal, I fell in love with that album, and he became one of my heroes. And then to actually meet him and become friends was just beyond all of my expectations.
It's an amazing woven tapestry.
Right.
Now, Keola, did you get to meet Paul Horn through any of these adventures?
I met him once at a film festival in Hama, and I loved meeting him. But it was too short a time together, and then he passed away. So I'm sorry I didn't get to know him better. I feel like I know him a little bit through his beautiful performances and his style and the loving things that his friends, speak.
And now you're on a CD with them, so you know him musically.
Yes,
yes.
And
then, he's a wonderful man.
And Keola and I and Moana and Nancy were just recently at Anne's house. Anne Mortafee, which is, who was married to Paul. And just being around her, you could still feel his energy, and it was just a beautiful experience.
So, Christopher, when it comes to a piece like this, you're familiar with Paul. You have a deep connection with Paul. You know him. And by the way, your works go deep back into the roots of people like, well, you've worked with Neil Young, haven't you, and others as well?
Yes.
So we're dealing in a kind of different kind of musical sphere here. And you've got to kind of, and Keola, the same thing for you. You're totally dealing in a different musical sphere, right? So it's kind of like, is it like an abstract painting, or how would you feel trying to even weave this tapestry I'm talking about together with Paul Horn not being here, but having a huge wealth of his wonderful music done through Tom's recordings? Keola, your work up there in the high Himalayas, that you found with these musicians, and with Christopher working magic in his magic shop. Explain how this kind of evolved with that whole feeling to make this CD.
Well, Christopher is also, is really connected to Nepal through previous journeys with Paul. But I'm kind of the new kid on the block.
Oh, and Keola, you're not. You're not.
So much. Yeah, well, not exactly a kid, but I have so much.
No one's buying it, man. No one's buying it.
Well, there are a lot
so
of
much respect for Christopher and Tom, and so I guess for me, it was just kind of Tom is a catalyst that we're bringing everybody together.
Yeah.
Somehow Tom has the gift of creating
and throwing good parties
really
too.
Organic, yeah, and he creates things in a really organic way. So he's the kind of the star around which we orbit sometimes. I think that it's been a total joy to be his friend and to know him.
Well, I certainly feel that way too, but I never felt like the star. You guys are the stars.
But if people don't get asked to do something, see, and that's the first thing is, can you? And you do it very casually. Oh, do you want to do this? Do you want to go to the Himalayas and do it? Same with you, Chris. Do you want to go to Kathmandu and go to a nunnery outside?
Well, we're talking about Myanmar next, and taking 40 ukuleles there. So if this all pans out, that's the next destination. Where we're heading.
Wow.
Destination.
Right.
Well, you did a beautiful job on this, Christopher. I heard one track you did when you had, Paul Horn. Not only just his music, one of the tracks actually does a beautiful job, kind of mixed and mastered. Where you
Mount Kailash Trek.
Yeah,
we called it that.
Yeah, that is really special. And then let's talk now a little bit about His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I honor him. He's my cherished teacher, and I've had a chance to see him talk, I think, about 7 or 8 times. But, Tom got to interview him, right? Tom got to go a couple of times, right?
No, just one interview.
Once
I had to turn one down.
You had to turn
I
one
had to
I would have gone.
Yeah, sorry, Dalai Lama. I was busy.
Well, I had to get back to work. I couldn't hang out in Dharamsala, you know.
So Christopher worked his magic, and actually Tom and Keola and I got together for lunch, and Tom says, "Listen, what do you think about this? Because here are these amazing interviews, and they're precious, jewels. What about putting music behind His Holiness the Dalai Lama interviews and making that? So, how do you go about doing something like that, Christopher?"
I would say it's a lot like, well, as an aside, there were some wonderful musicians that I think at different times Keola and I both ran into in Kathmandu. And it's the same as Paul. They're in a moment and they're playing something that's really authentic and really genuine. So when you're working with those performances, you're weaving them in not based on how they sound, but I would say more based on their authenticity. And if you were to find anything more authentic than the Dalai Lama, you'll have to tell me about it. So in a way, it's a little bit like drinking water. It's inevitable. When you place his voice against something, it's almost the easiest thing to do in the world, because you're paying attention, and not to his voice or even the sound of his voice, or even the literal words. You're actually experiencing authenticity. So it's easy.
Well, no, that's a very good point. I was just talking to Tom right before you both called about the fact that the music expressed on the CD, and you experienced it, Keola, is there's this lightness, there's this happiness, and yet we know the challenges that that people in Kathmandu and the Tibetans have faced. But when you hear the music, it's just so uplifting. It's and I feel that the same energy that you were just talking about, Christopher, that when you listen to the Dalai Lama's energy, it is, not only is his laughter so sweet, but it is uplifting. His voice is uplifting.
Yeah, it's a reflection of the culture and Buddhism in general, and it's really much different than the way we view the world. And as a psychologist, too, it fascinates me that when I get up into the mountains, that people seem much more happier than a lot of my friends that have all of the self-imposed misery that we bring upon ourselves, in terms of the way we think and so forth. But they're very conscious of that at some level, I think.
Well, maybe they have to be. I mean, when you're in those kind of challenging situations, you've got to be. You mentioned, Christopher, about being in the moment, and you mentioned also about Paul, and he did about being in that moment. And when you're in the moment, it's one way to transcend some of the challenges of your environment and what's going on in that environment. And I sense that in this music and this CD. I sense that. And Keola, for you, I mean, you've never done anything quite like this CD. And when people listen to it, you blend in so beautifully. What did you land up playing with these musicians?
Well, guitar, but kind of, I really felt like I should be way in the background, so that in some of those mixes, the guitar is way back there, because this is their culture and their land and their beautiful spirit that we wanted to shine. And also, I'm sorry, I got another call. Let me just. They have such a. I think part of the joyousness of their existence is their Buddhist beliefs and their sort of lifestyle that is very different from ours. Westerners, we got a lot of stuff. And
yeah, we do.
We lead very simple, uncluttered lives. And their search for happiness is beautiful to just sort of understand maybe just a little bit. We could use some of those lessons ourselves and just simplifying things a bit.
Did you find that there were different instruments you've never worked with before when you were jamming with them in the studio?
Yeah, pretty much all of them.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, we don't have that stuff in our Hawaiian pantheon of instruments. They are a mountain culture and we are an ocean culture, completely completely different.
Mm-hmm. I noticed that, sometimes you feel that wind. It almost feels like spirit wind blowing through. I think they even have a term called wind horse, but you definitely have a sense of that spirit wind, and of course you hear it in the flutes. There's a lot of great flute playing.
Right.
And of course, Paul Horn gets that idea as well with the flutes. But you had that experience, Tom, when you went to the top of Mount Kailash after Paul had passed, and you found a flute player playing flute up on the top of, and it's in one of your films, right?
Yeah, that was very special. That's in the Tibetan Illusion Destroyer, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah,
But that was wonderful.
Yeah, and so did anyone there, Keola, play guitar in the studio, or were there any guitars?
No.
No guitars?
No.
Wow. Did you have to tune your guitar to a different tuning to play with them?
Yeah, I'm kind of pretty good at that stuff over the years. I tell my students sometimes, every time you change all 6 strings of the guitar, you become a child again.
Uh-huh.
And so you kind of approach it with a beginner's mind, which is pretty helpful when you're in a space where you're just rapidly trying to learn as much as possible about these instruments and how they work and how they're played, how they sound, their traditions, and above all, I've learned over the years to really respect native instruments and to give them their space to allow them to speak.
And then you just kind of follow along? I mean, it's different structures. How do you follow when it's different keys and it's different?
Well, generally, I would try to sort of create the basic melodic structure of the piece and then fold the instrument in around it, based on how comfortable they were with, some of the ideas.
Was the rhythm structure different, too? I mean, is it a different kind of rhythmic feeling?
Yeah, it's for me, it's very attractive rhythmically. The Hawaiian stuff is completely different, and they're, I can't describe it, but the percussion instruments have so many colors and textures. It's really great to work with.
And of course, then there's those wonderful Tibetan roof layers, which we've seen. I saw you have them on the CD, don't you, Tom?
Yeah, in fact, Chris can talk a little bit about that, but they're the roofers. That was in Norbalinka, the Dalai Lama's summer palace. They were up there working on the roof singing, and Paul Horn actually climbed up there. It's in Journey Inside Tibet. We have the footage and started jamming with them.
I had heard them, but I didn't know Paul actually got up there and jammed with them.
Yes.
So, he did. And it's a wonderful sound because they have a little pad that's on the bottom of a stick, and the roof is a clay. And so what they're doing is they're compacting the clay on the roof, but they're making the work into a joy. And so they sing, and the men sing, and they do it in a troupe. And then the women sing, and they do it in the troupe, and they exchange these things back. But apparently, Tom, right, they do this all day long.
Yes, and, if you talk to a roofer in America, it's one of the worst jobs in the world.
It's
right?
hot.
Very difficult.
And you're up there,
and
dangerous.
Here we approach these people, and they look so happy up there working and singing roofing.
And they sound joyful.
Yes, very
joyful.
And
you know what's interesting is you can even hear it in that piece. They're working together as one because the music is drawing them together.
When Paul actually got up there, he had to walk on this wooden ladder that was
rickety,
very rickety and dangerous. But when he started playing, they just lit up and started smiling and really got into it.
Wow, that's.
Well, I would interject that that's because he projects this energy of acceptance, and so instead of imposing himself on them or their music and directing it in one particular way, he sort of accepts it. And I would say that's true of Keola's pieces with the Nepalese musicians, is that he's not interjecting himself and saying, okay, this is the thing we're going to be playing. Keola, because of your very cool, laid back, super respectful relationship with people, it sort of encourages a collaboration that's different from some director telling people what music is and what to play, but rather letting it invent itself.
Yeah,
I think it was beautiful.
Yeah, that was exactly right. And Paul actually was in the background. He didn't interfere with their work or whatever. But it was fun to see them hear the flute and and respond.
There's a lot of amazing things that happen on any adventure, and to be able to capture that musically is what I sense in this beautiful CD, that there's a lot of these moments that you wouldn't want to lose because they were just too special. Number one, some of the Paul horn pieces, which are so, they touch my soul when I hear, Paul playing. He had his own, he had his own energy and spirit. So when you hear his flute alone, and then you mix it with your energy, Keola, which is just this, well, you have such a, you are aloha. You're such a humble soul, but my gosh. How many people have Paul Simon call and ask him just to come play, or he invited you to come play on stage at his concert? My gosh, you're so humble. You don't, but so to have someone that, in those situations, you're just part of the group bringing it together. And then Christopher, you, without that, understanding of all of these elements and having known Tom and Paul and Keola and, to be able to bring this all together, it's really special. It captures the whole thing so beautifully. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, Christopher is a genius when it comes to music.
Yeah.
And
Oh, come on.
I was just going to mention that. Talk about a multi-gifted human being. Here Chris is just a fabulous artist, and then he's also just an amazingly excellent engineer. And not too many human beings have both those skill sets,
Mm-hmm.
And so he's able to, the good engineers, the ones like Christopher, they're around for a reason, and that's because they have this kind of openness where artists feel comfortable, working with them and working in their studios, and they make things happen rather than block them. Bad engineers accidentally sort of have a negative energy that blocks the creative process. But good ones like Chris have been around for a long time because of that beautiful gift of openness and positive attitude. Let's make it work. And it's a collaborative skill set that few people really possess at that level.
And you know what? You can feel it and you can hear it, and there's no way really to define it. In fact, Tom and I and everyone here involved was going, well, what category did we put this in, right? Because Paul Horn's considered to be the father of New Age music, but it's world music as well, definitely. But it's contemplative music, and then there's also the touch of the Dalai Lama. So there's definitely spirit involved. So it's kind of uncategorable. You can't categorize it in some ways, but you kind of have to. But you have to really hear it to sense it. And again, there's some beautiful footage that now is being put together with it, so that people can sense that with some of the beautiful visuals which capture the energy of that time. You didn't get any pictures, did you, Keola? Did you get any pictures of the sessions up there that you did together with them?
Not too much, because I was just kind of into the music aspect. I know Tom shot some stuff, and of course my wife Moana. But I got my memories.
Did Moana do any chants, or did she get a chance to interact with them?
Yeah, several times. Once. Particularly meaningful moment with the Rinpoche up at the foot of the monastery. There's the beautiful Hawaiian oli or chants are just really, they're really sort of intense in the sense that they really convey a lot of information, and they get your attention just by the vocalization of it. That beautiful human vocal sound without any kind of amplification or anything. She's a beautiful chanter.
She's not only a beautiful chanter, she also calls in the energy of the ancestors, and she brings in spirit through her voice, I might just add. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. In fact, you gave me goosebumps just on a recent trip. We were in Alaska, and she did this beautiful chant for our ancestors, and it just filled us all with joy. Yep, an amazing woman. So I'm glad that she was with us.
We were at Sir Edmund Hillary's house when he was in the Himalayas. It sits below the Chiwang Monastery, and right before dinner, they did the blessing, and the Rinpoche was there, and some very prominent people. And again, it was so beautiful. It just kicked off our trip, heading up to Chihuahua.
How amazing to be in that particular space and bring that together.
Right.
And it's funny. I was just talking with George Kalmoka when we met about doing an event here for One Little Finger, a film we're going to show, and he said, that the roots go way back to where they believe that actually the monks and Tibetan people were here even before the Hawaiians, millennials ago. That they believe, and that's where they got that headdress of the gold and the maroon. But that there is some history there. And beliefs that that energy was here in Hawaii all those many, many, many thousands of years ago. So again, we're tying it all together, and you're sensing something as well. And it is just, we're trying to put together, I think we're talking about maybe September 7th or to do a CD release party, and we're hoping that you can be there, Keola. And Tom's going to show the film in 3D. Which one are you going to show, Tom?
Well, it'll be the Dalai Lama film on China, Mount Kailash and Happiness.
Yeah, which is very special. And I know you, Christopher, I remember we kind of interrupted your flow when Tom came knocking on your door. Said, "Can you do this, please?" Because you were working on this amazing project to do is it a symphonic production or orchestration for the theater there, some special place in San Francisco?
Yeah, there's a wonderful planetarium. It's actually the biggest sort of digital dome in the world, and it's wonderful working with scientists and people because similar to us, they get through the edifice of either their equipment or even the academic culture that they're in, because they're trying to get to the point of the thing, whatever it is that they're studying. So I love the personality of these characters, and of course the dome is an unbelievable audio environment. It surrounds you, it's immersive, and you do it. It is not necessarily a space adventure. It sometimes is. We just did a thing under the ocean, under the coral reefs, and about sort of hopefulness of how the coral reefs can be saved and will survive. And so San Francisco tends to do a lot of Earth studies, whereas other planetariums do more work about space. But we think of it as this immersive theater, and it's truly a joy to work with.
So is that work in process still, or is that done?
Ongoing. I hope to be doing it for the rest of my days.
Well, because I'm just saying, because we don't have a real planetarium, but we just opened a kind of. You may have gone to Keola to the new Ocean Center in the dome there. Have you been there yet, Keola?
I've heard some really nice things about it, but no, I have not checked it out.
Wouldn't it be nice to bring Christopher Hedge over with his symphonic work and his saving the ocean reefs, and have that done there with the music? I think it'd be
great to me.
Sounds great to me.
Sounds good to me too, because we have.
I know people. I can make a call.
Well, because the Ocean Center here is doing. They have all kinds of things where they're saving the reefs, and they're actually growing all kinds of different reefs. Because the damage being done. We were one of the first places to actually ban the very damaging sunscreen that was killing the reefs, and trying to stop that, because there's a huge issue here, of course, about trying to protect not only the Aina but the oceans, which is so important. And so, wouldn't that be nice to have? Tom, your next project. Tom, Tom, you can do that.
It's so ironic because we are contacting them and talking about doing something with Gary Greenberg's sand.
There you go. So. There you go. Can pull it all together. Well, it is really so. I think I may have met Christopher once, but maybe not. But I certainly have heard about you, Christopher. And, it's just so beautiful. And it was so wonderful way you just jumped in with your busy schedule to make this happen. And Keola, I can't thank you enough for saying, and Keola's so laid back. I don't know how many people know him, but it's like, he's just always, you're so cool, Keola. You're just so chill. And you're just so chill.
I know. He's like one of the great artists on the planet. And he's just like, he's your brother. He's just this relaxed human being. How can that be?
And he just says, I think this could be a CD. Yeah, that'd be good. And I was like, okay, thanks for blessing us with your, okay. but it is amazing the way it happened. And again, it was really through Tom's, openness again to saying, okay, what about this?
Well, again, I want to get back to the purpose of this, and it is to, spread aloha around the world. And that was something that Keola brought up to me a couple of years ago, and I was just wondering how we could manifest it. And this CD hopefully will spark that.
Yes, and absolutely. We want to get some wonderful ukuleles to get out to more people, to more children, because when you see this video, you can go to HimalayanSessions.com. I posted the video of the Cambodian children there. You saw that video, didn't you, Keola, of the kids?
Yes,
yeah.
It's wonderful, yeah.
When you see the kids there being able to play and doing from what you started, the seeds were planted.
That's like the perfect grant report. We took the instruments down there, and they had nothing. And the first time we went down, I could just sort of feel this sort of sadness, with the children there, just economically so depressed, and so many difficulties recovering from the war years, And the ukulele is just like when I was a little kid. The ukulele just brought joy into my life. We didn't have any money. I didn't even, we had so little, but the ukulele brought this beautiful joy into our hearts, and that's what it did down there in Cambodia.
Isn't that
and
wonderful?
To see those kids playing, with this joyful abandon, and most importantly, their own music. We taught them chords, and we taught them, a song that we had learned from their culture, and the rest of it they just took and started playing their own folk songs. Pretty soon, Tutu is coming out from her home in the town square, and the children are singing, and people are enjoying it and laughing and bringing families together. Really awesome.
The magic of music at work, and you did it with that. And thank you so much, Christopher, for taking the time, and Keola for having the dream and understanding how to make it happen. And Tom, it couldn't have happened without you. And thank you for the wonderful work you do. You can see Tom's interview tonight on PBS, tonight and Sunday. Tonight 7:30, Sunday at 4 o'clock.
That's correct.
On Long Story Short with Leslie Wilcox. And it's so nice that Tom's, and another humble guy, is being recognized for what he's done to bring this all together. And it really, truly is wonderful, and it is pure aloha. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, Christopher and Keola.
Thank you, Cindy.
Aloha.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha. And that's about it. That's all the time we have. But thank you for coming in, Tom, and for doing this. You can go to Himalayan Sessions and get us part of it, and we'll get the CD out to everyone soon. And aloha.